Welcome to Hero Villains. What do you think? Hercules versus Achilles. Two warriors who became legends. Two names etched deeply into the collective consciousness of humanity as symbols of strength and courage. On one side is the greatest demigod of Greek mythology, the man who completed the 12 impossible labors, the one who carried the heavens upon his shoulders, defeated the most terrifying monsters, and even clashed with the gods themselves, possessing unmatched physical strength and an unbreakable will. Hercules. On the other side is the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, the embodiment of courage and martial glory, the man granted an invulnerable body through his mother's divine intervention, the warrior who single-handedly determined the course of a 10-year war, the hero whose only weakness was his heel, Achilles. When the greatest demigod faces the invincible warrior, when divine strength collides with perfect combat skill, who will be the last one standing?
Hercules, the god of strength of Olympus. Hercules, or Heracles by his original Greek name, was the son of Zeus, king of the Olympian gods, and Alcmene, a beautiful mortal woman. His birth had been determined by fate and divine schemes long before he drew his first breath. Zeus, in a moment of weakness, came to Alcmene disguised as her husband, and from that encounter, Hercules was born. Hera, the wife of Zeus, driven by jealousy and hatred, cursed Hercules from the moment he was still in his cradle, sending giant serpents to kill him. But from the very first moment of his life, Hercules demonstrated his extraordinary strength by crushing two snakes with his tiny hands as a newborn child. And Hercules' life was a series of unimaginable trials and heroic feats, his 12 labors. From slaying the invulnerable Nemean lion to capturing Cerberus, the three-headed dog guarding the gates of the underworld became legends retold for thousands of years. Each labor was not only a test of strength, but also a test of willpower, intelligence, and courage. Hercules completed them all, not through blind brutality, but through a combination of divine strength and sharp battle intelligence. The first task brought Hercules to the region of Nemea, where a giant lion was terrorizing the people. Its hide was so tough that ordinary weapons could barely penetrate it. Hercules ultimately subdued the beast through his own strength, then used its claws to skin it and kept the hide as a cloak. Next, Hercules had to face the Hydra, a many-headed serpent-like monster that lived in the swamps of Lerna. Even more terrifyingly, whenever one head was cut off, new heads would grow in its place. With the help of Iolaus, Hercules discovered a way to prevent the heads from regenerating and destroyed the monster. Hercules was then tasked with capturing the Cyrenian hind, a sacred deer with golden antlers associated with the goddess Artemis. This was a challenge that required patience rather than pure strength, as Hercules had to pursue the deer for a long period without injuring it. Hercules continued his journey to Mount Erymanthus to capture a gigantic and ferocious wild boar. The beast possessed terrifying strength and frequently attacked humans. Hercules chased it through the snowy mountains, then subdued it and brought it back alive. One of the most famous tasks required Hercules to clean the enormous stables of King Augeas in a single day. The massive amount of waste that had accumulated over many years made the task seemingly impossible. Rather than using physical labor to clear it piece by piece, Hercules redirected the rivers Alpheus and Peneus, using the force of the rushing water to wash the entire stable clean. Hercules had to travel to Stymphalos to drive away a flock of ferocious man-eating birds. These birds were numerous and capable of causing great danger with their claws and sharp beaks. Hercules used an appropriate method to force the flock to leave the place where they had been nesting. Hercules was then sent to Crete to capture an extremely dangerous wild bull. The beast had once caused great chaos and was connected to the story that led to the birth of the Minotaur, a monster with the body of a man and the head of a bull. Hercules subdued the bull and brought it back as commanded. And in Thrace, Hercules had to capture 4 man-eating horses belonging to King Diomedes. These horses were notorious for their ferocity and bloodthirsty nature. Hercules not only had to deal with them, but also overcome the resistance of those guarding the horses. Hercules continued on to the land of the Amazons to retrieve the belt belonging to Queen Hippolyta. The belt was a symbol of the queen's power and was considered a particularly valuable prize. This task ultimately led Hercules into a dangerous confrontation with the Amazon warriors. Hercules had to travel a great distance distance to reach the land of Geryon, a monster with a unique form consisting of 3 bodies and 6 limbs. Hercules' goal was to bring back Geryon's famous cattle. To complete the task, he had to fight numerous forces guarding the cattle and cross harsh land. King Eurystheus then ordered Hercules to retrieve the golden apples from the Garden of the Hesperidae. These treasures were associated with Hera and were heavily guarded. Hercules had to journey to a distant land, face dangerous challenges, and find a way to complete the task without losing the precious apples. The final labor took Hercules into the underworld, where he had to capture Cerberus alive, the enormous 3-headed dog guarding the gates of hell. This was the most dangerous challenge because Hercules had to enter the domain of Hades and face one of the most terrifying monsters in Greek mythology. The 12 labors transformed Hercules from a renowned hero into an immortal symbol of strength and determination. What is particularly noteworthy is that not every challenge was solved through sheer strength. In Greek mythology, he was regarded as the strongest of Zeus's sons and possessed combat abilities far beyond the ordinary limits of a demigod. According to Hesiod's epic The Shield of Heracles, Heracles directly confronted Ares in 2 separate battles. On both occasions, he overpowered the god of war, wounding Ares and forcing him to retreat to Olympus. Heracles was not only powerful, but also possessed astonishing speed. Homer described Ares as the fastest of the Olympian gods and repeatedly emphasized the war god's superior speed. The fact that Heracles could engage Ares directly and defeat him demonstrates that Heracles was also a complete warrior, proficient in numerous forms of combat, both with weapons and with his bare hands. Heracles became one of Zeus's most important allies in the war between the Olympian gods and the giants of Gaia. After sacrificing himself on a funeral pyre, he was taken by Zeus to Olympus and granted the status of a full god. Zeus even intended to make Heracles one of the 12 most powerful gods of Olympus. However, Heracles refused because doing so would have meant replacing a god who already held a position among the 12 Olympians. When Atlas needed someone to take his place, Heracles calmly took the enormous weight of the heavens upon his shoulders. This detail became a symbol of his extraordinary strength, as Heracles not only defeated divine opponents but could also endure and support a weight of cosmic scale in mythology. His strength is often placed on the same level as Thor, the god of thunder of Asgard. Heracles once faced Worldbreaker Hulk, one of the most dangerous versions of Hulk. This was a state in which Hulk's rage reached a level capable of causing global-scale catastrophes. Despite facing a source of power that was almost impossible to control, Heracles was still capable of fighting him head-on and was even said to have helped prevent the destruction that Worldbreaker Hulk could have unleashed. Heracles once claimed that his strength was powerful enough to shake the entire universe. Although this was a bold statement, after thousands of years of existence, Heracles has continued to perfect his combat skills. With more than 3,000 years of experience in warfare, Heracles has mastered numerous legendary and terrifying weapons. Among them are the sword of Peleus, the shield of Perseus, the arrows of Heracles, the helm of Hades, the Nemean lion's hide, and the famous adamantine mace. Beyond these mythological treasures, he is also highly skilled with countless other weapons, from spears, swords, and shields to modern firearms when circumstances require them. He is a master of both close quarters combat and weapon-based combat, possessing lightning-fast reflexes, extensive experience, and an exceptional ability to read the battlefield. The combination of divine strength, extraordinary durability, a vast arsenal of weapons, and skills honed over millennia has made Heracles one of the most formidable warriors ever to exist.
I sincerely hope you will subscribe to the channel. It would help us tremendously, and you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Now, let us talk about Achilles, the unbeatable warrior. Achilles was the son of Peleus, king of the Myrmidons, and Thetis, a sea goddess descended from the Titans. His birth had been foretold, declaring that he would become the greatest warrior the world had ever known, but would also face an early death on the battlefield. Thetis, out of love for her son and fear of the prophecy, sought every possible way to change his fate. She dipped Achilles into the river Styx, the river of the underworld, in order to make his body invulnerable. However, his heel, which she held while dipping him into the river, never touched the water, and that became the only weakness on his body. He was the perfect embodiment of the ancient Greek warrior, a man who lived for honor, for glory on the battlefield, and for the belief that his name would be etched forever into the memory of mankind. Achilles did not fight out of duty or love like Hercules, but because of a burning desire to prove that he was the greatest warrior of all time. Achilles was regarded as one of the most exceptional warriors. When he was only about 9 years old, Achilles was already recognized as a warrior of extraordinary ability. He once confronted Telephus at a very young age and was capable of defeating his opponent. At the height of his power, Achilles became an almost unstoppable force on the battlefield. Although Homer did not mention this in the epic Iliad, Achilles was still powerful enough to have a decisive impact on the course of a large-scale war. In an era that brought together some of the most legendary warriors of Greece, he still stood out as a warrior with superior speed, strength, skill, and combat ability. Among the mortals of his time, only Diomedes was often regarded as someone who could rival Achilles in combat ability. Because he carried divine blood, Achilles possessed physical attributes far beyond those of an ordinary human from a very young age. According to the later popular tradition, Thetis dipped Achilles into the river Styx when he was a child in an attempt to make his son's body invulnerable. He possessed incredible speed, exceptional weapon skills, and a fierce fighting spirit. On the battlefield of Troy, Achilles' presence could completely change the balance of power. His military talent, divine strength, and undefeated reputation made him one of the most famous warrior icons in Greek mythology. Achilles also faced the Amazon queen Penthesilea. In post-epic stories, Achilles defeated this legendary female warrior in a brutal confrontation. He also fought Memnon, the king of Ethiopia and a renowned warrior in the legends surrounding Troy. Achilles and Memnon fought each other directly on the ground after both had dismounted from their chariots. This scene appears on a Corinthian vase dated to around 570 BC, and was also depicted in Attic pottery from the same period. Another image depicting Achilles ambushing Troilus appears on a Laconian vase dating to the middle of the 6th century BC. These artifacts reflect how the ancient Greeks portrayed Achilles as a warrior capable of overpowering some of the most famous opponents. Achilles' body was almost invulnerable thanks to the mystical power of the river Styx. When he was a child, his mother, Thetis, dipped him into this mythical river, causing most of his body to become immune to injury. As a result, ordinary weapons such as bronze swords, spears, and other sharp weapons could hardly harm him. Achilles' defensive abilities not only allowed him to withstand conventional weapons, but also enabled his body to endure sources of immensely destructive energy. Powerful thermal attacks and magical energy would also have difficulty penetrating his divine protection. Achilles' psychology was one of the most complex and terrifying aspects of his character. He carried within him a cold fury, one that did not erupt like fire, but gnawed away like acid. When Achilles fought, he did not fight with joy or exuberance, but with the absolute focus of someone who knew that every battle could be his last. He did not fear death, because death was something he had accepted from an early age. The only thing he feared was being forgotten, the possibility that the name Achilles would be erased from the memory of mankind. This fear drove him to fight with an intensity and ruthlessness that no ordinary warrior could match. His most famous battle was his confrontation with Hector, the prince of Troy and the strongest warrior on the Trojan side. Hector was a complete warrior, strong, courageous, and respected by both sides. The battle between Achilles and Hector was not merely a clash of strength, but also a conflict between two philosophies of honor and duty. Achilles fought for personal glory, while Hector fought for his family, his city, and the people he loved. The outcome of the battle had been determined by fate, and Achilles killed Hector with a spear thrust through his throat, then dragged his body around Troy for 3 days as an act of revenge for the death of Patroclus. Achilles also faced Memnon, the son of Eos, the goddess of the dawn, and a warrior blessed with divine power. The battle between Achilles and Memnon was a confrontation between two warriors of divine blood, both at the peak of their strength. Memnon possessed strength comparable to Achilles and was protected by his mother's magic, causing the battle to last for hours. In the end, Achilles emerged victorious. Achilles faced many enemies across different eras. He fought in the Trojan War alongside and against other Greek heroes, confronted gods who intervened on the battlefield, and even faced entities from the underworld. In some storylines, Achilles was resurrected in the modern era and forced to confront entirely new threats, from supervillains to cosmic entities. One of Achilles' most memorable battles in the Marvel Universe was his confrontation with Ares, the god of war. Despite being a mortal with divine blood, Achilles showed no fear in the presence of a god. He fought Ares with sheer ruthlessness and skill, using his speed and ability to read the battle to evade energy attacks and close the distance with the god. However, Achilles was not without weaknesses. His most obvious physical weakness was his heel, the only part of his body that was not protected by the magic of the river Styx. A precise attack against this point could inflict a fatal wound, and in mythology, it was an arrow striking his heel that ultimately ended his life. And now it is time for the direct comparison and combat analysis. This is a battle between two demigods, two of the greatest heroes in Greek mythology. This is the fundamental contrast of the battle. Hercules is far physically stronger than Achilles. He was able to lift the heavens themselves, while Achilles, although incredibly powerful, still possessed strength within the limits of a lower tier demigod. If Hercules could land a direct attack on Achilles, it would inflict devastating damage, potentially breaking bones or even causing death. However, the problem is that Hercules cannot injure Achilles. Achilles' skin is invulnerable. Hercules' club, no matter how powerful, would not be able to leave even a scratch on Achilles' body, except for his heel. This creates a stalemate. Hercules is stronger, but Achilles cannot be harmed. Achilles is a more agile and technically skilled warrior than Hercules. He could evade Hercules' attacks with his speed and deliver precise counterattacks. Hercules, although a master warrior, relies more heavily on strength and endurance in his fighting style. He often allows himself to take attacks so that he can close the distance and deliver devastating blows. However, Achilles possesses incredibly extensive combat experience from a war that lasted 10 years. He is by no means inferior to Hercules when it comes to battlefield experience. Hercules is not a fool. He is a seasoned warrior who has faced countless enemies with different weaknesses. He would quickly realize that his attacks were ineffective against Achilles' body. He would begin observing his opponent and searching for a weakness. And with his strength and combat abilities, he could absolutely force Achilles to expose his heel. He could seize Achilles' leg, throw him to the ground, and attack his heel. However, Achilles also knows his weakness well. He would fight carefully, protecting his heel at all costs. This would become a tense battle of wits between protecting a weakness and exploiting it. Combat. The battle begins with a period of probing. Hercules will charge forward with his club, unleashing powerful attack. Achilles will use his speed and skill to evade them and counterattack with his spear. He will thrust his spear at vulnerable areas of Hercules' body, but these attacks will only inflict minor wounds and will not be enough to bring Hercules down. Hercules will realize that Achilles is too fast for him to hit effectively. He will change his strategy, attempting to close the distance and grab Achilles. He will try to use his wrestling skills to throw Achilles to the ground. Achilles will attempt to maintain his distance, using his spear to prevent Hercules from getting close. The battle will become intense and fiercely contested. Eventually, through his unparalleled strength, Hercules will succeed in grabbing Achilles. He will wrap his arms tightly around Achilles and squeeze him with all his strength. Achilles will struggle to break free, but Hercules' strength will be overwhelming. Hercules will lift Achilles into the air and slam him into the ground with tremendous force. At that moment, Achilles' heel may become exposed. In that instant, Hercules will see the weakness. With all his strength, he will deliver a fatal blow directly to Achilles' heel. The heel will be crushed, and Achilles' immortality will disappear. Achilles will collapse, defeated. This is a victory for Hercules, but not an easy one. Achilles is a great warrior. His immortality is a terrifying gift that makes him almost impossible to defeat. But that immortality is not absolute. It has a weakness, and once that weakness is exploited, Achilles will return to being an ordinary mortal. Hercules, with his unparalleled strength, extensive combat experience, and the wisdom of someone who completed the 12 labors, has also faced and defeated enemies far more terrifying than Achilles. He has slain gigantic monsters and fought against gods. Achilles, although a great warrior, remained primarily within the realm of human warfare. Hercules' experience in dealing with supernatural entities is vastly greater than Achilles.
And that is our analysis of the battle between the greatest demigod and the immortal warrior. Let us know what you think by leaving a comment below. Are you on the side of Hercules' divine strength or Achilles' immortality? If you enjoy epic showdowns between the greatest heroes of mythology, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next battle. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much.